Hey, what's going on, everybody? Wired here. I hope you're all having an excellent day. And today we're going to talk about Mr. Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire. Now, if you're not aware, Matt Walsh is in a very right-leaning conservative with very traditional views, and he went viral a couple weeks ago for his rant against Dylan Mulvaney and about how he says we should not tolerate these types of people in our society. And a lot of people had a lot of issues with this, including a lot of right commentators or center commentators like Tim Pool, the Quartering, Sidney Watson. But I don't want to. I think Matt Walsh is a little down on the trans community, but actually not even so much, because I think he's more down on people indoctrinating children, which is a subject I'm very, very impassioned about. I have the unfortunate experience of being a single dad. And because of that and lack of resources, I actually have my daughter in the public school system. And I try to stay on top of it as much as I can and pray that this sort of stuff does not happen to my child, or it doesn't happen to any child. You know, you send your kids to school with the hope of being safe and them to be, educated, nurtured. And that's the experience I went through when I was in school in the 90s and 2000s. But clearly now the agenda has changed. Now kids realize they can get attention from certain teachers if they pretend or they feel that they're trans or whatever, because that's acceptable now to identify with a teacher's sexual orientation, ideology. They can see themselves in them or blah, 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 whatever justifications they're going to make, which I think is really messed up. It shouldn't be in schools. I didn't even know my teachers were married. Well, I guess I did from if I had a female teacher, Mrs. or Miss, I guess I could figure it out from that. But other than that, I never, my teachers never talked about this stuff. None of my teachers ever did. I didn't have any weird teachers at all. Some peculiar ones, I guess. But without further ado, because I know I ramble forever, let's get into this Matt Walsh clip here, because this is fascinating stuff, and he's going viral and being dragged on the internet once again by leftists for trying to protect children. Fascinating.
Really, it's what you said, the mutilation of the truth, which I like that. I might steal that line. I don't know. I hadn't thought of that yet. But to me, that's the starting point. And that is the most important thing. And all the other stuff grows from that root. Once we abandon truth as a society, then all bets are off. And the whole reason why, the reason why it's terrible to do this to a child, the primary reason, like why is it a terrible thing to try to turn a 15-year-old girl into a boy? Well, because it's not possible, because she can't be a boy. She's
facts. That's 100% facts. And I don't know, I kind of disagree with Matt Walsh on this. I don't dislike trans people. I just think there is an age of consent for everything. And although I am kind of against the mutilation of people's genitalia for any reason, because I think that's going to, at least some of the time, lead to a lot of unwanted repercussions and psychological damage, as well as physical damage and emotional damage. I definitely do think that children should be completely exempt from this. I know there are some people who are going to say, oh, if children get into this a little more, their hormones and blah, 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 but I don't really care about that. There's an age of consent for everything. You got to be 16 to drive. You got to be 18 to smoke. You got to be 21 to drink. You got to be 18 to join the army, 18 to own a gun. There's ages of consent for a reason. But you can chop your genitalia off at 11? No. Sorry, I'm not on board with that.
He's not. So that's what makes it mutilation. That's what makes it's not medical treatment, it's mutilation. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because it's not true. So I think that's the starting point for me. It's just like, this is not true. It's not true, and that's.
And he's got a point there. When if you identify as a trans individual, if anyone watching this identifies as a trans individual, and this is just facts, I don't mean to talk down on anybody. When they dig up your bones in 3,000 years, they're not going to know you were trans. They're going to know you were born a specific gender. That's factual.
And that's why it matters. The thing that makes it really personal for me is the way that kids are affected by it. I have 6 kids, mm-hmm. and we homeschool them, and we do my oldest kids are 9, so it's still relatively easy to shield them from a lot of this craziness. But eventually they're going to end up in the world and they're going to be subjected to this. And I hear from parents all the time, just these horror stories of.
I'm going to say that also that's wonderful for Matt Walsh. You can homeschool his kids. You can hire tutors to come in and provide the best care and education possible for them. And that's fine. But most parents are not in that position, which is why I think this is such a big issue with people. And there are conservative commentators, or they say they're conservative anyway, like the Quartering, like Tim Pool, who say this isn't really that big of a deal. But the Quartering, he doesn't have any kids. Tim Pool, as far as I know, I'm not 100% on that, but I don't think he has any kids. People who have children are going to be more upset about this. They're going to be more concerned about this. And I saw a day ago, the Quartering said, oh, it's a totally milquetoast thing. You know, you don't have, because you don't have children, I care just as much. No, you don't. You're never going to care as much if you don't have children, because your children couldn't be directly affected by this. And there's no love you're ever going to have for anybody, at least I don't think, that's going to be the love you have for your child. To want to nurture them, protect them, shield them from all evil. And obviously, you can't. There's no way you can. They're going to go out in the world, they're going to make their own mistakes, they're going to live their own lives. You try to guide them the best you can, and they'll mess up from time to time. And that's totally fine. Everyone does that. I've done that. I've messed up many times. Anyone listening here? I'm sure you can think of times in your life, your younger life, where you've messed up plenty of times. That's fine if you can fix it. You know what I mean? But it's not fine when they mutilate their genitals and there is no going back. You'll never be normal again. You're not ever going to be a whole person again. You can't reproduce anymore. And I really believe that's the agenda. That's what the left wants. And people like the Quarter Pounder are like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, bro. It's like, stay on your grift, man. Stay on your grift.
You know, I raised my kid. I did everything right. I even homeschooled. I did whatever. And then one day my daughter at 16 comes home and declares that she's a boy. And from that moment, it's just, she is devoured by this cult almost overnight and becomes unrecognizable. She wants nothing to do with us anymore. I've heard the story so many times. And it's terrifying. It's horrific. You know, it's, I think as a parent, it's like a fate worse than death in a lot of ways. You're losing your child. It's like a death of a child while they're still alive. And so that's what makes it, I suppose.
All right, I don't know if I agree with him on that. It's a fate worse than death, but it's definitely something that no parent wants to hear. And it's definitely, if something like that happens, you'd want it to be discussed in the home extensively. You don't want it to be decided at school around these people who don't really care about your child. Teachers care to some extent. Obviously, they do. You know, my daughter's sick. I get a call from the nurse's office and things like that, and I'm glad I do. Thank you for that. But they're not going to care about you like your parents are going to. Nobody's going to care about you like your parents. And I think that's what Matt Walsh is trying to say. But I could be wrong. You know, leave a comment down in the comments if you think I'm wrong. But obviously, Twitter's dragging him for this because, you know, that's what they're going to do. You know, you look at this and he's got any child that having that for a parent is tragic. Where was all this fervor over the critical mooring of the truth for the last 7 years? Dude manages to find someone dumb enough to F him at least 6 times. Which I think that's a very jaded comment. I think Matt Walsh is actually very successful. He's on the Daily Wire. He probably makes a good bag. The number of kids you can have, I would say, should be limited to the amount of income you can make. And what I mean by that is, I've had this discussion with many people, and a lot of people think I'm wrong, a lot of people think I'm right. My parents, my mother and father, they live next to someone with 7 children. And he's a doctor. And his wife is a homemaker. He can afford his 7 kids, he gets his 7 kids. I think that's fair. Now, I don't believe in this whole government thing where people should die in the streets. I really don't. I think if you have 2 kids, and then you have a 3rd one, and you can't afford them, you got to go on government assistance. I think the government should help you out. I really do. However, I don't think you should have any more kids. I don't think you should have any more kids than you can really afford. I'm not saying we should let people die in the streets. I don't think that at all. But the way our culture is now, it's like you can have 10, 20 kids and the government's supposed to take care of you. I think there needs to be restrictions on such things. But that's just my opinion. I think Matt Walsh, I don't even know if he's being harsh, really. I don't think he is. I think he's worried about his children. Luckily, they're homeschooled. I know I worry about my daughter all the time, every time I send her to school. For various reasons. I don't want other kids to be mean to her. I don't want her school to get shot up. I know that's a very, very small possibility, but always in the back of any parent's mind that something tragic could happen to their child. And nobody wants that. You know, my daughter is my whole world. I don't know what I'd do without her. And I think Matt Walsh is expressing that same thing about his children. And I'm just sick of these milquetoast commentators getting on here and being like, oh, you don't understand, I care just as much. No, you don't have kids. And that might be a hot take. I don't really care. If you don't have kids, you're not going to care as much. It doesn't really affect you. You're out of school. You're not going to get harmed by it. You can grift on the internet all day. I'm not saying everyone who says this is a grifter. Just, you're not going to care as much as somebody who is a parent. You don't really understand what that love is. You're married, whatever, you're still not going to understand it. The love for your child is the greatest thing you can ever have. And if you think I'm wrong, comment down below and tell me how I am. But anyway, that's my take. I know I've rambled for a little bit too long on this video. I was trying to keep it to 8 minutes. I'm at like 11 and a half now. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, or leave an angry comment and tell me how I'm wrong and bigoted, transphobic, all that. You know, I like to get DMs about that stuff because I just try to be as fair as possible, but there's always going to be somebody who just, you know, like, oh, you're not. But can't please everybody. But anyway, that's all I got for you today. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And, you know, just watch out for your kids. Know what they're doing. That's it for me. Later.